YouTube, what is good? It's your man Rib. So welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about this right here. This is Ilford Ortho 80 Plus, and it is ortho film as the name says. Well, what is ortho film for those that don't know? Basically, ortho film is film that is not sensitive to the red color spectrum. So anything that's pure red will appear black in your black and white image, and anything that's got hints of red in it will appear darker in your image per se. So I was curious to see what this would actually mean in kind of everyday life when you talk about landscapes or street photography or even portraits. And so I decided to put this to the test. If you want to skip ahead to my thoughts and to look at some of the prints I made as well, click on this timestamp right here, and that'll take you to that part of the video. But for the next part of the video, we actually have a vlog. And to shoot this film, I decided to go somewhere a little bit special to go visit a little bit of a special guest. My journey took me all the way to the Isle of Wight here in the UK. Let's go ahead and jump into the vlog footage.
So my total trip door to door basically ended up being about, let's say, 4 hours. It's not a difficult trip, you know, very easy connections, but the connections themselves take a little bit of time, and the train definitely stops and, you know, kind of hangs out for a bit. So it took a little long, but this was definitely worth it. The next part of my journey is definitely the most interesting part, and this is actually the last leg. So to get to the Isle of Wight, you can take a ferry like normal people, or you can be cool like me and jump on a hovercraft. If you don't know what a hovercraft is, think back to one of those Jackie Chan movies where he gets run over by this big boat that's on like a big balloon kind of looking thing. That's a hovercraft, and it is pretty damn cool. If you're wondering what it's like to ride in a hovercraft, well, it's very similar to being on an airplane, honestly. I feel like the interior decor is the same. Then in terms of ride comfort, it's actually very comfortable. It's not perfectly smooth. You definitely feel a bit of a rumble, but it's a bit less choppy than being on a boat. And it's just got this nice little kind of mild turbulence that's ongoing the entire time. Similar to, you know, parts of an airplane ride. It was definitely worth it. Look who it is. You're much bigger and taller in person.
How you doing, mate?
How you doing?
Good, yeah? Let's go do some photographs.
Hell yeah, man, let's do it. So there it is. That's the big surprise, meeting up with Roger from Shoot Film Like a Boss. To start off our journey in the Isle of Wight, we headed up to a big hill where there was a bunch of beautiful cows and, of course, some really interesting trees. Roger knows these areas very well because of his travels for his channel, so I was very much looking forward to exploring the Isle of Wight through his eyes. I was probably saying something pretty witty and interesting and maybe even funny in this clip here, but stupid me, you know, I don't know how to record audio. The wind here was just insane because we're on the top of a hill, so you couldn't hear a goddamn thing. Who knows what I said, but let's just assume it was funny. Anything for the shot. That was it? That was fast.
1.5 seconds.
Yeah. For our next stop, we hopped back in Roger's car and we drove, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes over to another part of the island. And here we were going to go visit an abandoned mansion. This mansion is from, let's say, the late 1800s, and it was actually bombed out during World War II, and now it's just kind of like a relic, a park. And yeah, we went to go check it out. There's some cool structures here, a lot of texture, and of course some really hard shadows because of the sunlight. Found a little cool doorway here. This is perfect film photography stuff. Look, it's run down, it's boarded up.
longer, but and there's one thing about shooting when you use these pinholes is once you've taken a shot, just advance the frame. That's what I always do, and by keeping to that sort of momentum, you know that you're not going to double expose the next one, and it protects the last frame as well if you accidentally flip open the shutter in the bag or whatever. But like I said, usually I put a little bit of tape over here. If I put it in the back of my bag now, I'll just put a bit of tape because that's quite easy to flip open.
Yeah.
And you won't know, but you can obviously ruin the frame that you're about to shoot on, but that'll be alright.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was fast. All right, for stop number 3 of the day, we hop back in the car, and this time we headed towards the coast of the Isle of Wight. And we were gonna go hit up the beach where Roger typically does a lot of photography and also is constantly almost getting wet by the tide. I don't know why he does this, but you'll see in a couple clips here that he just loves playing with fire. So I've got the big gun here, 200 millimeter. My lens is a little dirty, so I'm gonna... I hope that doesn't make anybody cringe.
Stick it in the comments, that's out of order, you can't be doing that. You need a lens cloth, man.
I think I have one in there somewhere, but I don't know. This isn't gonna fall, it's not gonna break on me. Oh, this looks dope. Man, I'm not trying to get my feet wet like in your videos. This is why Roger's feet always get wet. Look, it's gonna happen again. Always. He's always running away from the sea. Why you do this to yourself? It's gonna get you again.
Nice good video shot though.
Yeah. Anything for the shot. The next part of our journey, we actually went to a different beach. This time we were going to a big rocky beach, which I think they call Pebble Beach on the Isle of Wight, but this one's very different, no sand. It's just a bunch of very small pebbles, and it's pretty interesting. What is happening? So of course, any hangout in the UK is gonna involve some beer. So we hit up one of the local pubs here. It's actually a really nice one. And we got a couple beers and some cheese and some bread, you know. Doing real fancy stuff out here in the Isle of Wight. One of the last stops of the day was actually my absolute favorite. We went over to a nature preserve that's basically a big marshland. And it was low tide, so you could see the mud and everything kind of around. And we walked around this really big walkway all the way towards kind of the center of the marsh. So there were some really cool structures there. There was a lot of boats hanging around too and some ladders. Just a really interesting location, and it was completely empty. It was basically all to ourselves, and it was golden hour, or at least the beginning of golden hour. So we were starting to get the really nice 45-degree diagonal lighting, and it was looking really, really nice. Alright, so at this point I was basically not only out of ortho film, but of course, you know, we reached the end of our day here in the Isle of Wight. So we went over to one last pier, just at the very kind of end of sunset, and of course we had to do a selfie on film. So Roger placed his camera on a car here, and here's the resulting shot. I think our heads are gonna be the only thing in the shot. I'm curious to see how this turns out.
All right, wasn't that fun? Roger's the man. I've been following his channel for quite a bit, and he actually made a companion video to go along with my video of our Isle of Wight hangout. So click on this card right here to go check out his video, and make sure to go give him a like and comment as well. So in terms of ortho, very broadly, how do I feel about this film? I actually really like this film. I think it's very intriguing. Looking at the scans only, you see a lot of contrast, and basically that darkness that comes from the red color spectrum really adds a little bit of extra detail and pop to a lot of the things that I feel like I tend to photograph. So for example, you go on your nature walks, if you're photographing a cliff or anything that has rocks and that kind of stuff, oftentimes I feel like there's hints of red in there that really pop with that extra contrast because it goes to black on this film. And then of course, you know, on everyday street walks, buildings, things that have brick. For example, here in London, a lot of brick buildings, a lot of old school brick, local brick in fact. And that brick always has a darker color, and this ortho film really pops. Trees, for example, you know, brown trees often have a lot of hint of red in the color. Again, that adds extra contrast in there. So I just love that. It really brings out this beautiful tonality in the image, and it adds a little bit of intrigue. The part that I'm not fully convinced about yet is actually the sky. So, you know, the sky typically is blue, but for whatever reason, that color that's coming from the sky is slightly altered by this ortho film. And I find that typically on a kind of panchromatic black and white film, your sky oftentimes will be just blown out or white. And that might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the image. A lot of my images here with the ortho film, I found that the sky went a little bit gray. And I feel like in some images I like it, and in other images, I'm not really sure if I like it or not. I feel like it kind of gives this appearance of being flat. It kind of reduces the overall contrast in the image as opposed to the contrast in specific parts of it. So again, this doesn't happen in every single image, but sometimes when I do see it, I'm like, maybe I don't know if I like that or not. Overall, really like the ortho film. This film is rated 80 ISO. It's a slower film, and therefore, typically you're not gonna see harsh grain. I actually really like the grain on this film. It's not harsh at all. It's very minimal, but it's still there. There's just a hint of it. And you know, for the look that you get on the actual images, whether prints or scans, I like that just slight touch. For printing, the slight touch of grain is actually very helpful because it helps you find your focus. Sometimes I find that with 100 speed films or anything even less than 100 speed, sometimes you can't find the grain at all. And when you're printing and you're trying to find your focus, if you can't see the grain, then it's gonna be very tough to find your focus. But with this film, there's just a hint of it there, and it's something that you can definitely see and find when trying to find your focus. So we talked about contrast already, how much I love that. We talked about the grain. That kind of leaks over into sharpness. This film, again, it's a very slow film, and typically slow films are quite sharp. So, you know, nothing kind of surprise here in terms of sharpness. This just looks great. I like this film. The only thing I don't like about it is the price. And given that this film is, I don't know if I would call it a specialty film, but it's not kind of your everyday film, let's say, from a color perspective. And given that this film is perhaps can be seen as a specialty film, it definitely adds to the cost of it. I don't know, you know, what manufacturing process requires extra cost or that kind of thing, but ultimately, this is definitely much more expensive than a lot of the other Ilford options that you can get, especially here in the UK, because, you know, Ilford is a UK company, so Ilford film is usually among the most affordable, especially for really quality products. This is probably the most expensive of the Ilford films that I've bought. So, unfortunately, I'd love to use this film even more, but I don't think I could justify it from a cost perspective. I'd probably save it for interesting things, especially if I was going on dedicated, like landscape focused photography, for example. But definitely gonna use this a lot more. The price, you know, not ideal, but it's not scary. And I think it's worth the price, comparatively at least. So let's talk about the prints. As you saw in that footage, I hit the darkroom and, you know, I had to bless up this film as I usually do. It was a very interesting experience though. And what I mean by that is the results didn't match what I expected to see. As you saw with my scans, there's really beautiful contrast in a lot of these images. And in my prints, there wasn't as such beautiful contrast. Before I say anything else, I think it probably was user error. I hadn't done black and white printing in a few weeks, let's say. And I was kind of rushing through it, admittedly, because I was trying to get some stuff out for this video. And I think I probably just messed up my color settings, because as you know, I use a color enlarger. And with a color enlarger, to control contrast, you manipulate basically your blue and your green. And to do that, you play with the yellow or the magenta color knobs. So I think I may have used the wrong one to add contrast and perhaps remove contrast. And that's why I got the images that look the way I got them. But I still like the prints though. I think as photos, I really like the images. So first and foremost, we have this right here. This is one of those leaning trees that Roger loves so much. This is the first place we went, and I just love this one. The tree itself has a lot of character. I love this shadow that comes across here. I don't know why I find that so intriguing, but I just really like it. And then there's a nice vista in the background in this particular image. So I just really like the composition. It's an interesting scene from my opinion. I want to show you this, which is probably my favorite photo that I took. And this is, you know, it's kind of a simple shot of one of the sheds that was at that creek. And then there's a boat kind of flipped over. I took a little artsy approach with this photo, you know, and I kind of cropped the shed itself. And it's, I wouldn't say this is abstract, but, you know, this doesn't kind of obviously tell you anything about where you are or what's going on. And it makes you think. And the beauty is the ortho brought out so much extra detail and contrast because of the lack of the red, or the red going black, let's say. So I just really like this image, and there's some hard lines here. It's just interesting. It's not the kind of photography that I ever do, but I was shocked at how much I like this photo. So I'm definitely gonna try to do a lot more stuff like this. This is probably the stuff you see on Instagram often, and maybe that's why I kind of shied away from it, but I really like it. And for a print, I think this looks really nice. This is the kind of thing that you can just put up anywhere, you know? It's a nondescript scene that's just nice and pleasant and interesting, and it would make great for a print in people's homes. This other photo I really love as well. And this is actually one of the ones that disappointed me from the print perspective, but I love the actual scan. So I love the composition here. You know, we've got a very plain and empty beach scene, and then we've got a paraglider. Just a very nice scene, you know, it feels so relaxed and freeing. What I don't like is that all this texture that's in here, if you look at the scan, which I'll show right here, it all went to black. It all really brought out extra kind of detail in the rocks because of the red parts that went black. In my print, it looks very much different. It's super flat from a contrast perspective. So I'm pretty sure I messed this up, and because I was under a time bind, I didn't really mess with it that much more to try to achieve the actual look that I wanted. But nonetheless, I still really like the photo. And again, the image itself, the composition, what you get in there, kind of the feeling is what matters the most. Of course, you can manipulate it further to add extra touches that you want, but I really like that. So yeah, ortho film's very interesting. I'm very intrigued by it, and I definitely want to keep shooting it more. I just think that the price, you know, it's something that I'm gonna have to get over, but I'll definitely save ortho film for specific scenes, and you know, it's definitely gonna be part of my arsenal going forward. I'm glad that I gave it a try, medium format. I'm curious about 35mm. I didn't shoot any 35 ortho this time, but I'm assuming a lot of the qualities are gonna be very similar, except for maybe the grain. I'm curious about what happens with the grain. So let me know what you think. Have you used ortho a lot? Do you like ortho more than panchromatic film? Talk to me in the comments. I'm curious what people's thoughts are. Haven't heard too many people talk about this, and there's not a lot of tags on Instagram, for example, for ortho. So I figure people are using it. Maybe they're just not talking about it. So let me know in the comments down below. All right, y'all, that's the video for this week. I hope you enjoyed the vlog, and I hope you stuck around for this long video. If you enjoyed the video, definitely go ahead and like, and of course, go ahead and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, why not? Come on, let's do it. All right, y'all, to the next video. I'm out.